That night, the entire United States seemed to hold its breath, glued to their screens, witnessing a fiery confrontation between two prominent political figures. This was not just a debate, but a true battle where every word carried immense weight. When Senator Adam Schiff, a familiar face in the fierce opposition to President Trump, stormed off the stage in a fit of rage, he could no longer contain his emotions after taking a devastating blow from his opponent. And the one who delivered that blow was none other than Senator John Kennedy. Kennedy sent the studio into a frenzy with a biting remark about Donald Trump. That moment not only shook the media, but also exposed the simmering power struggle behind the scenes in Washington. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. The stage was ablaze. Spotlights swept across the packed auditorium, where the atmosphere grew hotter by the minute. The host appeared impeccably dressed in a suit, exuding confidence with a radiant smile, as if ready for this moment. His warm, captivating voice rang through the microphone. Welcome to tonight's show. Tonight we have two special guests, Senators Adam Schiff and John Kennedy. The cameras panned to two podiums set up center stage, where the lights gradually focused. The host stepped forward, his voice sharper. Adam Schiff, the man who has relentlessly scrutinized, questioned, and criticized the Trump administration. With his razor-sharp legal mind, he's here tonight to shed light on a controversial case, the deportation of Mr. Obrego Garcia, a legal immigrant forced to leave the country without minimal due process. He paused, letting the tension settle, then turned. Facing him is John Kennedy, senator and close ally of Trump, known for his folksy style, sharp rhetoric, and ability to counterattack like a seasoned chess player. Is the Garcia case truly evidence of abuse of power, or just overblown political theater? Adam Schiff stepped up to his podium, his expression stern, holding the microphone. His voice was steady but powerful, like a prosecutor preparing to deliver an indictment. Tonight, we need to make one thing clear. He raised his head, his gaze sweeping the room. The Trump administration has subjected a legal resident, Mr. Obrego Garcia, to injustice. He was deported without proper due process. This is not just a mistake. It's a serious sign of abuse of power, and it threatens the foundation of our nation's rule of law. He paused, his voice lowering as if suppressing his anger. The Supreme Court issued a ruling demanding Mr. Garcia's return, but the administration ignored it. Why? That's the question those still defending President Trump must face tonight. The spotlight shifted, drawing attention to the opposite podium, where Senator John Kennedy stood with a half smile, his eyes sharp as a blade. The host, with smooth finesse, leaned toward Kennedy, who sat casually with that same half smile. Senator Kennedy, what do you think of Schiff's argument? He asked, his tone both incisive and tactful, keeping the energy high without tipping the balance. Kennedy picked up the microphone, leaning back, his eyes gleaming like a storyteller about to deliver a punchline. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice drawling, I respect Schiff, but I'm afraid he's turning a mosquito into an elephant. The Garcia case, an administrative error, nothing more. Calling it abuse of power is like saying, my dog is a tiger. The audience erupted in laughter and applause. Kennedy continued, his tone friendly yet sarcastic. Schiff talks about the rule of law, but Mr. Garcia went through 17 court hearings, costing taxpayers a fortune without paying a dime himself. If that's not fair treatment, I don't know what is. He raised an eyebrow, looking directly at Schiff, as if daring him to respond. Schiff frowned, his hand tightening on the microphone, but he maintained his composure. "Senator Kennedy," he replied, his voice icy, "you call it a mistake. But when a legal resident is wrongfully deported, it's not a minor error. It's a constitutional violation. And when Trump ignores the Supreme Court's ruling, he places himself above the law. How do you defend that?" The Democratic audience applauded, but Kennedy didn't flinch. He leaned forward, his smile intact but his eyes sharper. "Schiff, I'm not defending mistakes. If it's wrong, admit it's wrong. But you're trying to paint a picture that Trump is dismantling the system, when in reality President El Salvador Bukele made it clear Garcia is not coming back. What do you want Trump to do? Send troops to El Salvador, or are you just stirring up the crowd for more headlines?" The Maga audience cheered, one person shouting, "That's right, Kennedy." The host, quick on his feet, interjected, "Senator Schiff, how do you respond to Bukele's refusal to cooperate?" As Kennedy mentioned, Schiff took a deep breath, a flicker of tension in his eyes, but he quickly regained his composure. "The issue isn't Bukele," he said firmly, "but the responsibility of the Trump administration. The court ordered Garcia's return, yet Trump took no action. This is a pattern, from ignoring the courts to imposing tariffs that harm American consumers." He pivoted, attacking Trump's tariff policies. "These tariffs drive up prices, hurting the middle class. Trump calls it a win, but the people are paying the price. Kennedy, can you explain why your voters would want to pay more for goods?" The audience stirred, some raising their hands in support. The host, with masterful moderation, turned to Kennedy, his eyes gleaming in anticipation of the response. Kennedy let out a soft chuckle as if he'd just heard a mildly amusing story. "Schiff, you really think people don't understand tariffs? They know we've been ripped off by other countries for decades. Trump did what no one else dared, slapped on tariffs to force the EU, Japan, and a dozen other countries to the negotiating table. 40% of the world's nations are begging for tariff reductions. If that's not a win, then I'm a flying pig." The audience roared, shaking the studio. The host, with finesse, kept the show's rhythm by posing an open question. "Senator Kennedy, you talk about wins, but Schiff says tariffs hurt people. Schiff, do you have specific data to back that up?" Schiff, with a stern expression, responded immediately. "Data? Look at the skyrocketing prices of goods, from food to electronics. American consumers are bearing the cost. Trump may call it negotiation, but he's gambling with people's livelihoods." He paused, staring directly at Kennedy. "Senator, do you dare tell your voters they should pay more just so Trump can brag?" Kennedy shook his head, his smile unwavering. "Schiff, you love painting a grim picture, but you're forgetting one thing. Trump's bringing jobs back to America, bringing manufacturing back to America. People would rather endure short-term pain for a better future than let China keep bleeding us dry." The audience cheered again. The host, sensing the escalating tension, deftly shifted gears. Clearly, both sides have strong arguments. But let's dig deeper. Schiff, do you have evidence that these policies are deliberate abuses of power? Schiff cleared his throat, his voice sharp but composed, like a prosecutor ready to deliver a decisive blow. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his gaze sweeping from Kennedy to the audience. The Obrego Garcia case is just the tip of the iceberg. The Trump administration not only ignores Supreme Court rulings, but also abuses power to manipulate financial markets. Look at the president's Truth Social post, hyping his own stock just before the market surged. This is suspicious behavior that demands investigation. Who benefits? Not the American people, but those close to Trump. The Democratic audience erupted in applause, some raising their hands in support. The host, with smooth poise, leaned toward Kennedy, his eyes sharp, his voice both melodic and tactful. Senator Kennedy, Schiff just made a serious accusation about market manipulation. How do you respond? Kennedy, with a thin smile and eyes glinting like a chess player plotting a move, picked up the microphone, his tone relaxed but razor sharp. Schiff, you're a master at spinning horror stories, he said, his voice drawling as if telling a joke at a coffee shop. You paint Trump as some supervillain, but what do you have besides words? A social media post? By that logic, I guess we need to investigate the whole country every time I praise my mom's gumbo. The audience roared with laughter, one person shouting, "Well said, John." Schiff didn't flinch, his eyes hardening, his voice cutting sharper like a knife through the air. Senator Kennedy, you can joke, but the American people aren't laughing when their wallets are hit. Trump's tariffs are driving up prices from food to cars. Your constituents are paying more because of this policy. And don't forget the JFK files declassification, a political stunt to polish his image, not for the sake of truth. He paused, staring directly at Kennedy, his voice full of challenge. You're defending a president who puts personal gain above the nation's interest. How do you explain that to your voters? Some audience members stood up, cheering. The host, with quick reflexes, interjected to keep the show's pace. Senator Kennedy, Schiff just brought up tariffs and the JFK declassification. Do you have an answer for the voters? Kennedy tilted his head, his smile unwavering, but his eyes sharp as a blade. Schiff, you love playing the savior, but you're forgetting one thing. The people aren't fools. They see Trump doing what past administrations didn't dare. Tariffs, they've got the EU, Japan, and a slew of other countries begging to negotiate. That's American strength, not a personal game. As for the JFK files, Trump did what you Democrats only promised, revealing the truth to the public. He paused, staring directly at Schiff. Or are you scared that truth makes you look bad? The audience erupted, applause drowning the studio. One person waved a Trump 2024 sign, igniting the crowd further. Schiff, his face tense, took a deep breath, struggling to stay composed. Senator Kennedy, he replied, his voice rising slightly, you call it truth, but I call it a stunt. Declassifying the JFK files didn't bring justice. It was just Trump deflecting from his failures and tariffs. They're making Americans pay more while Trump and his friends profit. I demand a transparent investigation into that Truth Social post. Do you dare support that? The host, with finesse, sensing the rising tension, jumped in. Senator Kennedy, Schiff is calling for an investigation into Trump's post. Do you agree more transparency is needed? Kennedy gave a soft chuckle as if he just heard a silly idea. Transparency? Schiff, you talk about transparency like you're an angel, but let's be real. You've spent a decade chasing Trump, from impeachment to now. And what do you have? Not one shred of solid evidence. just stories to make headlines. If you want investigations, why not probe the prior administration to see what they did with taxpayers' money? The audience roared again, while a few shook their heads, murmuring discontent. Schiff, his eyes flashing with anger, shot back immediately. Kennedy, you can hide behind jokes, but the American people deserve the truth. When Trump hypes his own stock, he's not thinking of voters. He's thinking of his wallet. And you, as a senator, have a duty to demand accountability, not cover it up. He pointed at Kennedy, his voice resolute. Whose side are you on? The people's or Trump's? The audience booed and clapped in a chaotic mix, creating a charged atmosphere. The host, with calm authority, raised a hand to quiet the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, let's let the senators continue, he said, his voice rising and falling, controlling the crowd while keeping the energy alive. Senator Kennedy, how do you respond to Schiff's question? Whose side are you on? Kennedy, his smile intact, prepared to fire back, his eyes glinting like a hunter spotting prey. The senator gripped the microphone, his voice slow and laced with sarcasm like a folksy storyteller about to deliver a sharp quip. Look, Schiff, he began, his tone drawling, you spin a tale about Trump like he's the villain in a horror flick. But come on, let's cut to the chase. You throw out all these accusations, market manipulation, tariffs hurting people. But where's the proof? Got anything solid, or are you just weaving stories to keep the audience glued to their screens? A woman in a red hat raised a "Trump is the best" sign, riling up the crowd. Schiff clenched his jaw, his fingers tapping lightly on the podium, betraying a hint of unease. The host, with smooth poise, seized the moment, deftly redirecting. Senator Kennedy, he said, his voice clear and engaging, his eyes darting between the two. You're challenging Schiff's evidence. Senator Schiff, would you like to respond with specific details? The question was like a spark, igniting the next round of debate. Schiff stood tall, his voice firm but tinged with urgency. Senator Kennedy, the truth is crystal clear, he countered, his eyes locked on his opponent. Trump's tariffs have driven up prices. Families are paying more for food, cars, and that Truth Social post. It wasn't just a status. It was a calculated move to boost his stock while the market reeled. You call it confidence. I call it a conflict of interest. How do you defend a president who puts his wallet above the people's interests? A few shouted, "Well said, Schiff." As the atmosphere grew electric, Kennedy didn't flinch. He leaned back, one hand brushing his lapel, a sly smile never leaving his lips. Schiff, you keep preaching about hardship, but you're aiming at the wrong guy, he said, his voice rising like a preacher's. Tariffs. They've got China, Japan, and Europe scrambling to negotiate with us. That's not hurting America. It's putting us back on top. And the Truth Social post? That's just Trump being Trump. Talking big, thinking big. You want to talk conflicts of interest? Why not dig into the billions poured into pointless projects under the last administration? Or does that hit too close to home? The host, with keen instincts, interjected to maintain the show's rhythm. Senator Kennedy, you just made a point about past administrations, he said, his voice calm but sharp, keeping the audience engaged. Schiff, how do you respond to the claim that you're only targeting Trump? Schiff narrowed his eyes, his posture resolute, ready to strike back. I'm not here to play deflection games, he said, his voice crisp, each word like a hammer in a courtroom. This isn't about the past. It's about the present. Trump's actions, from ignoring the court order on Garcia to imposing tariffs that enrich his allies, show a pattern of abuse of power. You, Senator Kennedy, are you standing with the people or just covering for Trump? An audience member stood, raising a fist. Kennedy, with eyes glinting like a seasoned card player, leaned forward, his smile now sharper. Schiff, you love playing the justice warrior, but you're forgetting one thing, he said, his tone like a fireside storyteller. The American people aren't fools. They elected Trump because he acts, not sits idly while foreign countries bleed us dry. Tariffs bring jobs back, protect our borders. You keep crying abuse of power, but I'll ask you straight. You've been investigating Trump for a decade, from impeachment to now. What do you have besides accusations? Or are you just heating up the stage to score votes? The audience erupted, applause crashing like waves, one person filming the moment on their phone, clearly for social media. The host, with masterful moderation, sensed the escalating tension. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice rising and falling, raising a hand for quiet, "we're witnessing a fiery debate. Senator Schiff, Kennedy just challenged you on evidence. Can you provide more details?" Schiff, his eyes flashing with anger, took a deep breath to regain composure. "Kennedy, you can use your folksy talk to deflect, but the people deserve the truth," he replied firmly. "When Trump ignores the courts, when he drives up prices with tariffs, and when he posts to profit personally, that's not leadership. That's abuse of power. Do you dare stand before your voters and say they should pay the price for these stunts?" The host, with the finesse of a conductor, stood at the center of the tension, his voice melodic and engaging, controlling the crowd while fueling the energy. "Senator Schiff," he said, his eyes sweeping the audience, "Kennedy just asked for specific evidence of your accusations against Trump. Can you clarify, or is this just part of your anti-Trump campaign?" The question was a sharp, subtle blade, leaving the audience breathless, awaiting Schiff's response. Schiff took a deep breath, his hand gripping the podium, his eyes flashing with determination, but tinged with pressure. "Host, ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice resounding, each word carefully carved. "I'm not here for political games. I'm here for the truth. Trump didn't just ignore the court ruling in the Garcia case. He's pushed Americans into hardship with tariffs that drive up prices, and his Truth Social post, that's clear evidence of a conflict of interest. When a president uses his power to boost personal gain, that's not leadership, it's abuse. I call for a transparent investigation, and I challenge Senator Kennedy to support it if he truly cares about the people." The Democratic side erupted, applause surging, some audience members standing with raised fists. One shouted, "Save justice, Schiff!" But Kennedy, unshaken, leaned forward, his smile now edged with a predator's sharpness, like a hunter ready to deliver the final blow. He gripped the microphone, his voice slow, like a folk storyteller hiding a blade. "Schiff, you talk a good game. Like a lawyer in a courtroom," he began, his eyes locked on his opponent. "But let's be honest, you've been after Trump since the day he took office. From the 2019 impeachment to now, throwing out every accusation, abuse of power, market manipulation, JFK stunts. So I'll ask you, and I want a clear answer. Do you have one piece of concrete evidence, not just talk, to prove Trump deliberately put his interests above the country, Or are you just staging a drama to win votes while the American people want a leader who acts like Trump has? The audience exploded, cheers like thunder drowning the studio. One person waved a "Trump makes America great" sign, fueling the crowd's frenzy. Schiff, for the first time, faltered briefly, a flicker of unease in his eyes. He opened his mouth, his voice slightly trembling, trying to regain control. "Senator Kennedy, you want evidence," he replied, his voice rising as if masking tension. "The evidence is the skyrocketing prices people are paying. The evidence is Trump's post, hyping his own stock just before the market spiked. And the evidence is your silence. Kennedy, when you refuse to call for an investigation, you're not standing with the people. You're standing with Trump." But Kennedy, like a fighter sensing weakness, didn't let Schiff off the hook. He stood up, a rare move, silencing the audience, their eyes glued to him. "Schiff, you said something about standing with the people," he said, his tone now icy, stripped of humor. "Let me tell you about the people. They elected Trump because he acts, brings jobs back, forces China and the EU to beg for negotiations. You keep talking about evidence, but I'll ask again, and answer straight. In your decade-long hunt for Trump, from impeachment to now, what have you found besides baseless accusations? If you're really for the people, why not investigate those who truly bled America dry before Trump? Or do you just want this stage to play the hero?" A few Democrats shouted in protest, but the crowd's cheers drowned them out. Schiff, face flushed, eyes wavering, gripped the microphone tightly. "Kennedy, you're deflecting," he said, voice trembling. "I'm here for the truth, and I won't stop demanding accountability." His words lacked force, swept away by the Maga crowd's roar. The host, sensing Schiff's struggle, interjected, "Senator Schiff, Kennedy asked for specific evidence. Can you provide it?" The audience fell silent, waiting. Schiff faltered, "I've made it clear. Trump's actions are the evidence." Boos erupted with shouts of, "Speak, Schiff!" Kennedy, smiling victoriously, sat down. Schiff, now beet red, dropped the microphone with a thud. "I'm not playing your games, Kennedy," he shouted, storming off the stage. The crowd roared as someone filmed the exit. The host calmed the audience. "We've witnessed an unprecedented moment. Kennedy, any thoughts?" Kennedy shrugged. "I just wanted clarity. The people want action, not fairy tales." Cheers exploded as the debate's fallout went viral online.